Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. Today, I think it's safe to say we've all asked ourselves this question at some point, right? Why be good?
Hmm, that's a big one.
It is, and that's why we're diving deep into this website, simply titled, Why Be Good?
I like it. Straight to the point.
And the website itself is this really interesting mix of science, like actual evolutionary biology,
Oh, wow.
and then philosophy, which I think makes for a really fascinating combo.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. Where do they even start with a question that broad?
Well, they actually lead with a pretty startling statistic. They say 99% of Earth's species have gone extinct,
Oh, wow.
which, when you think about it,
That puts things in perspective.
really emphasizes the whole survival of the fittest idea.
Definitely. Only the strongest survive.
And the site brings up E.O. Wilson. He's an evolutionary biologist.
I have heard of him.
He argued that humans became the dominant species because of two major things.
Okay, let me guess. Opposable thumbs.
Close. It
Mhm.
was actually controlling fire and building permanent nests.
Ah, interesting. Controlling fire makes sense. I mean, for warmth, protection, cooking.
Right. And then that second one, building nests, is what they call eusociality.
Eusociality.
Yeah. And it's super rare in the animal kingdom. We're talking like only 7 species on Earth do this.
Seriously. Hold on, I gotta know who made the cut besides us.
Right. Besides humans, you've got naked mole rats,
Oh, of course, the naked mole rats. Classic.
termites, a few types of ants.
Huh. Okay. Not exactly who you picture ruling the world.
Definitely not the A-list, you know?
No, not quite. But that actually makes you think if it's so rare, it must be important.
Totally. So, okay, we've got fire, we've got nests. How does this all tie back into being good?
Well, the site breaks it down like this. So fire, right? It allowed for cooking, which they say led to humans having bigger brains, more complex thinking.
Makes sense. More calories, more brain power.
Exactly. And then those permanent nests, they created this need for, like, division of labor.
I see where you're going with this. Right. Some hunt, others protect the camp, care for the kids. All of a sudden, you need trust, cooperation. You're all in this together.
It's like that instinct for teamwork is built into us, even now.
100%. I mean, think about it. Your job, your family, your friends, you can't do everything solo. We rely on each other. They rely on us.
True. And the site makes this point that early humans weren't just cooperating within their group, they were also competing with other groups for resources.
Oh, so like rival tribes battling it out.
Exactly. They make it sound pretty intense, Game of Thrones, but for like a watering hole instead of some iron throne.
Okay, I can picture it. All that pressure, the competition, had to shape how they dealt with each other.
For sure. Which brings us to this really interesting idea the site explores, the whole tension between selfishness and cooperation.
Ooh, okay, that's a good one.
They talk about this thing E.O. Wilson called the iron rule. It's the idea that selfish individuals might do well within a group, but in the long run, groups that cooperate outperform the selfish groups. Makes you think about like that inner struggle we all feel. You want things for yourself, but you also gotta belong, gotta get along.
Totally. And what I found really fascinating is the site actually suggests that this tension, wanting stuff for yourself, but also needing to play nice with others, might be the very thing that kicked off human intelligence and our whole social structure.
Whoa, hold on. So our messy, complicated nature is what got us to where we are.
That's what they're saying. But they also make this point really clear.
What's that?
When it comes to judging someone's values, don't listen to what they say, look at how they act.
Actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. It's like, do they actually walk the walk?
So how do they actually behave? Do their actions match up with, like, integrity, honesty, fairness?
All those qualities that build trust, strong communities. It was important back then. It's still important now.
For sure. It's like, if someone's always cutting corners, putting themselves first no matter what, maybe their caveman instincts are a little too strong, huh?
Maybe so. It's almost like we're still carrying those ancient drives around, even though the world's totally different from what our ancestors faced.
Okay, but that makes me think. Those instincts, fight or flight, they were honed for real, immediate threats. Saber-toothed tiger, enemy tries, you got to act fast.
Right. Yeah.
But today, we're bombarded with bad news, info overload. It's nonstop. It can trigger those same fight or flight feelings, even if we're not actually in danger.
So, like, our brains are stuck on overdrive, responding to threats that might not even be real.
Exactly, which is why the site asks this big question.
Yeah?
Are our caveman instincts running wild in today's world? with all the media and everything.
Okay, now that is a little unsettling, but tell me, does the site address how this connects back to being good?
Oh, they definitely do. And they actually take kind of a hopeful turn here. They point out that for the first time ever, we actually have enough resources for everyone on Earth to live well.
Wait, seriously? That's kind of hard to believe with all the, doom and gloom we hear all the time.
Right. It seems counterintuitive, but that's what they're saying. And get this, world population is supposed to start declining after 2050.
Huh, interesting. Okay, so enough resources, fewer people. Sounds promising.
Right. So the site argues that the biggest obstacle to a good future isn't a lack of stuff, it's our own tribalism.
Tribalism. Okay, what do they mean by that?
It's that thing where we see ourselves as separate groups, instead of one species all living on this same planet. It becomes us versus them, my group versus your group, constantly competing instead of working together.
Okay, I get it. It's like that urge to protect your own tribe, your own people, even if it means someone else loses out. Which I guess makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint, right?
Totally. It's all about survival. But the site brings it back to those core values. Fairness, cooperation. The things they say helped us survive for millions of years.
So if they were so important back then, shouldn't they be how we treat each other now? Especially if we have enough to go around.
Exactly. It's a powerful message, but honestly, it can feel like a losing battle sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, you look around, people being selfish, cutting corners, and they seem to be getting ahead. Makes you wonder why bother being good when everyone else is, cheating the system.
It's a real struggle.
Yeah.
And the site totally acknowledges that tension. They're not pretending that everyone's going to suddenly become altruistic.
So how do we deal with that? I mean, is it even possible to be good in a world where it feels like everyone else is kind of gaming the system?
Well, the site actually has this interesting take. They argue that in the long run, the people who prioritize integrity, fairness, those things, they actually create a more stable, prosperous environment for everyone, including themselves.
So it's not just about being nice, it's about understanding that ethical behavior benefits the whole system.
Exactly. Think about it. In business, who are you going to trust more? The person known for honesty, reliability, or the shady one?
Yeah, good point. Give me the trustworthy one every time.
Right. But of course, there are those times where it feels like being good doesn't get you anywhere. You speak up, try to do the right thing and nothing changes, or maybe you go out of your way to help someone and they don't even notice.
Ugh, tell me about it. Those are the times that make you want to just give up, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And the site doesn't promise any instant rewards for being ethical. Sometimes doing the right thing means acting according to your values no matter what.
So even if it's hard, even if nobody's watching, even if it seems pointless.
Exactly. It's about that inner compass, the one that guides your actions even when the world seems to be rewarding, well, the not-so-good behavior. And here's a thought. Even if your actions don't create some huge immediate change, they might still inspire others to act differently.
So you might be planting seeds without even realizing it. Those seeds could grow into something bigger later on.
Right. It's like that ripple effect. You drop a pebble in a pond. Might not see the full impact right away, but it's still there.
I like that analogy. Makes you think about those small acts of kindness we all do, or at least should do. Holding a door, actually listening when someone's venting.
Right. Those things might seem tiny, but they add up. And the site really drives home this point. We are all interconnected. Our actions, good or bad, have consequences. And those consequences, they spread way beyond just us as individuals.
It's like that butterfly effect. One tiny action can have huge, unforeseen consequences down the line, which honestly is a little scary.
Yeah, can be.
Yeah.
But it also highlights why being good is so important.
Yeah.
Even seemingly small choices, they can contribute to a more positive or negative trajectory for the entire group. For all of us, really.
Makes you think, huh? So what's the site's take on where we go from here? I mean, it's one thing to talk about individual choices, but how do we create, systems that are more ethical?
They actually do dive into that a bit. And one of the key things they talk about is fostering a culture of empathy, understanding.
So basically, breaking down those tribal walls that keep us divided. Seeing each other as humans first, not focusing on all the things that make us different.
Exactly. The site argues that when we can actually see ourselves in other people, connect with their stories, their experiences, that's when we're more likely to treat each other fairly, with compassion.
Yeah, makes sense. When you understand someone's humanity, it's a lot harder to dehumanize them, make them the enemy. But how do we actually do that? Cultivate that kind of empathy? It seems like everyone's so stuck in their own echo chambers these days.
They actually offer a few practical suggestions. For example, they talk about having meaningful conversations with people who hold different views than you.
So not just hiding in our own little corners of the internet where everyone agrees with us.
Exactly. It's about stepping outside that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Actively seek out those different perspectives, even if they make you uncomfortable. And really listen to understand where the other person is coming from, even if you don't agree.
I can see how that would be valuable, but man, it can be so tough, especially these days when everyone's so polarized.
For sure. But it's about building bridges instead of walls. It's about recognizing that even those we might see as different as the other, they have something to teach us.
Reminds me of the role education plays in all this. If we want a more ethical world, shouldn't we be teaching these values to the next generation? Starting young.
100%. The site highlights that too.
Yeah.
Instilling those ethical principles, but not just through like lectures. It's got to be real world stuff.
Yeah.
Experiences that build empathy, critical thinking.
So give kids opportunities to actually practice being kind, being fair, not just hypothetical scenarios.
Right. And help them learn how to handle those tricky ethical dilemmas. Because in the real world, things aren't always black and white.
True that. And it makes you realize how important role models are. Kids watch how the adults in their lives behave. If they see grown-ups acting ethically, treating people with respect, well, that's a pretty powerful lesson.
And we all have a responsibility to set that good example, as what the site says. By living our values, we create this ripple effect. It can inspire others, especially younger generations, to follow suit.
Okay, so we've talked individual ethics, societal change, education, but there's this one question I keep coming back to. What about those people who just seem dead set on acting unethically? The ones who exploit others, cause harm, just to benefit themselves?
That's a tough one. And to be honest, the site doesn't have any easy answers there. They do say, straight up, that there are always going to be people who choose to act in those harmful, destructive ways.
So what do we do? Just shrug and say, well, that's just human nature? Or is there a way to, protect ourselves, protect others from those people?
They suggest that while we can't control what other people choose to do, we can choose how we respond. And they get into some pretty interesting stuff about navigating those tough situations. When you're face to face with someone who's doing something wrong.
Now that's what I want to hear more about. Because let's be real, we all struggle with that at some point, right? How do you actually stand up for what's right when you're dealing with someone who's determined to do the opposite?
Well, they start by talking about boundaries. It's important to set those boundaries. Protect yourself from people who might try to take advantage of you or hurt you.
So we don't have to just put up with bad behavior, even if it's from, someone we know, someone we care about.
Exactly. Your well-being comes first. And sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself and the others is to step away from someone who's causing harm.
Okay, that makes sense, but it can be so hard to actually do that, especially if it's someone close to you. But what about when you can't just walk away? Like if you're dealing with a whole corrupt system or someone in power who's abusing that power?
Those are the situations that can make you feel totally powerless. But the site, they make this point, we're not actually powerless. We can join forces with others, people who share our values, and work together to change things.
So speaking out, organizing, advocating for policies that actually promote ethical behavior, holding those in power accountable.
Exactly. And they remind us that throughout history, real change has often come from razor people who just refuse to accept injustice. It rarely comes from the top down. It starts with people demanding better.
So it's not about waiting for someone else to fix it. It's about taking ownership, realizing we all have a role to play in creating a better world.
And even small acts of, resistance, little acts of courage, they can make a difference. Every voice that speaks up, every action that challenges the way things are, it adds up. You never know what kind of ripple effect you might create.
That actually does make it feel less overwhelming, less hopeless, knowing we're not in this alone.
That's what the Why Be Good site really emphasizes. We're part of this, a long line of people who fought for a more just, compassionate world. What we do today, it can inspire future generations to keep fighting.
It's a powerful legacy, but it also means we've got to live up to those ideals, the things those before us fought so hard for.
Absolutely. It's a constant journey. The quest for goodness, it never really ends. It takes vigilance, courage, and this willingness to keep learning, keep growing.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Individual choices, societal change. There's anything else from the site? Anything we missed?
Oh, they do bring up a few other things, like forgiveness, for example, forgiving yourself, aid others.
Forgiveness. Man, that's a tough one, especially when someone's really hurt you.
Yeah, they acknowledge that it's a process, not always easy, but They say it's essential for healing, both personally and as a society.
So holding on to that anger, the resentment, it can actually do more harm than good.
Exactly. It can poison your relationships, make you bitter, keep you stuck in the past.
I can see that. It's like you're letting that hurt control you. So forgiveness, what else?
Gratitude. They talk about how important it is to, like, actively cultivate gratitude, appreciate the good things in your life. It can help create a more positive outlook overall.
It's like count your blessings, right?
Yep.
Focus on what you have instead of what you don't, which, to be honest, can be really hard sometimes.
It takes practice,
Mm.
but it can really shift your perspective.
So forgiveness, gratitude, anything else.
They touch on mindfulness again, too. That idea of paying attention to the present moment, being more self-aware, making choices that actually reflect your values.
Slow down, tune in, and then make decisions instead of just reacting, right?
Exactly. It's a way to live more authentically, more ethically.
Wow, this Why Be Good site is seriously packed with good stuff. It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
Mhm.
And I love how they connect those ancient instincts, you know, the ones for cooperation, for being good, to the challenges we face today. It's like we're all part of this big experiment figuring out how to be better humans.
And the choices we make, both as individuals and as a society, they're shaping how that experiment turns out. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all this?
Hmm, I think it's this. Striving to be good, it's not about being perfect. It's about embracing the journey. Recognize your imperfections, learn from your mistakes, try to do better each day, and remember, we're all in this together. Your choices, they have ripple effects. So choose to be good, not just for you, but for everyone, for the future of our planet.
That's a great way to put it. And I think it's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Why Be Good website. This conversation has been inspiring, to say the least.
My pleasure. And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep asking those questions, keep learning, and keep trying to make a positive difference.
That's right. Until next time, keep diving deep.